Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast. I'm Austin Hill. With me, as always, is Austin Waiter. And we're back talking college football after a full week one. We've seen what everybody's made of. We saw some very fun matchups this weekend, including, like we said before, three top 10 matchups in the first week, which I believe they said was the first time ever in AP poll history that that's happened.
I believe that's what I heard too. So yeah, I believe it's the first time ever. So I mean, it was a historic weekend, no matter what the results were.
Yeah, but just kind of looking at what we're going to talk about here, you look at Thursday night, and let's just kick it off right away. Looking at USF flattening Boise State 34-7. The Broncos offense absolutely missed Ashton Genty in this game, while the Bulls, in my eyes, were just firing on all cylinders. To me, you look at it, and we saw an exciting offense for the Bulls, which we were expecting with Byron Brown coming back again for another season. But this defense looked elite, really, from the Broncos or from the Bulls here. And my big takeaway was how many transfers they were talking about coming from the SEC, like Missouri and Texas A&M transfers on this defensive line. Now, I'm sure those guys probably weren't starting, but
Right.
still, to have that kind of caliber talent have transferred in, USF seems like they might be a legitimate threat to steal that kind of group of five spot in the college football playoff.
Yeah. As someone who's a South Florida believer this year, it was great to see the game. But I mean, oh my gosh, Mark Madsen dropped back to throw 46 times in this game. I don't think he even came close to throwing that much last year. Whenever they
No.
couldn't get the run game going and he was forced to pass, they put way more pressure on him in week one of this year than they did all last year combined. That included the playoff. So it was not a shocker to see him go out and miss some throws, drop the football on that. Uh, but the one thing I give South Florida credit for, that was a 7-7 stalemate for the longest time. And then one of
Yeah.
the gutsiest play calls of the year. We saw it at the end of the season last year in the bowl game, having the backup QB go out as the punter, make an amazing throw down the field for a touchdown. And after that, I mean, it was just all South Florida. So, obviously, we'll probably talk a little bit about the Mountain West and their absolutely horrendous start for all the top three teams in the conference. But it seems like the American might be the early leader for who's going to be that group of five representative in the college football playoff if this game tells what that is.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And look, we go ahead and start talking about Friday night's games and looking at some of the excitement that took place there. And a game that had kind of caught my eye that we had looked at that I think we really got some answers about some of these teams. Auburn versus Baylor. This was a 38-24 victory for Auburn. But this game was not really ever that close. It never really
No.
felt that close. And that's not entirely disrespectful to Baylor because I do think Sawyer Robinson had a really fun performance where, look, completion percentage wasn't great, 27 for 48, not terrible. But he had the 418 yards and three touchdowns. So at least this Baylor offense does seem to have some life. But I think the big takeaway, at least for me, was Jackson Arnold. While he didn't have another, great performance throwing the football, there were a lot of questions about whether he should be the QB1 coming out of camp, and maybe they look to go a different way if he has a bad start to the season. And look, he just didn't have to make that many decisions throwing the ball because when his
Right.
first option wasn't there, he took off. He ran for 137 yards, two touchdowns, not to mention the two backs behind him, both running north of 50 yards and both running for a touchdown each. So the run game for the Auburn Tigers looks really, really good against a coach and a team with Dave Aranda that looks to be a good defensive unit.
Not looking forward to any to when we talk about Florida State and Alabama, but I swear I was looking at 2015, 2016 Gus Malzahn's offense. Just
Yeah.
nonstop run, 300 yards rushing for Auburn in the game. I mean, Baylor just couldn't stop the run. I think overall Auburn ended up like averaging 6 yards a carry. So I mean, they were just getting 6 yards every single play pretty much. Jackson all running the football was great. Baylor's offense, I thought, was really solid. Their problem was just the defense. They could not stop the run if their lives depended on in this game. And it came down to they really couldn't stop QB power because on like multiple fourth and ones or third and ones, Jackson Arnold's literally running QB power straight up the middle, and it's either a touchdown or he's gaining 10, 15 yards every single time. So it was a good win for Auburn. Again, if they can have success running the ball like this, obviously they're going to have play better SEC defenses. So I won't guarantee that that's going to happen. When you get an SEC play, but if they
Yeah.
can run the ball like this is a good sign to finally see some positives in year 3 for Hugh Freeze at Auburn. Maybe this will show some positives if they continue to run the ball like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that last rushing touchdown by Jackson Arnold that basically sealed this game in the fourth quarter. I'm watching it and it's what, third or fourth down.
Yeah.
And I literally was like, okay, well, this is going good. I'm trying to get my YouTube TV multicast set up here so I can catch this Georgia Tech Colorado game, which we're just about to talk about. Because I knew they were coming down to the wire too, and I'm trying to get everything all straightened up and it's like 3 seconds of buffering after I've changed it to multi-view, and then I come back from a black screen, and Jackson Arnold's standing in the end zone celebrating, and I'm like, "What did I miss? I swear I was only going for a play." And they showed me the replay, and it was one big long run for a touchdown. But yeah, it was impressive to see, and I think you got some supporters in your corner. If you're Jackson Arnold, again coming out of camp, like I said, people were saying maybe this wasn't going to last long. Maybe Jackson Arnold wasn't built for the SEC. And I'm not going to say that he is built for the SEC or he's the future. But this was a much better game than those reporters and analysts would have had you believe coming into this game for Auburn. But let's talk about the nightcap, a game I really enjoyed. I thought it was a blast. Georgia Tech versus Colorado, a 27-20 finish. And I thought we were going to see shades of last year Hail Mary at the end of this game, just because they had one more chance at it, and it was pretty close. It wasn't, and I realized that it actually wasn't as close as it looked in the game because it looked like he almost caught it, but really it bounced off the turf into his hands. Uh, but this was a great game. And this was the Georgia Tech team that we've become accustomed to seeing over the last couple of years. This gritty, hard-nosed team. And there's just something that just says we're so back about Haynes King and just rushing for over 100 yards in this game. I think 156 yards, 3 touchdowns. And it was just a vintage Haynes King performance where halfway through the game, we're wondering if he's going to be able to finish the game because he's walking into the huddle and he's limping to the sidelines. And yet, at the end of the game, when they need it most, it's Haynes King who punches it into the end zone for this team. Absolutely phenomenal performance by the Yellow Jackets and by Haynes King, one of the Bull Take Podcast's favorite players to watch.
Yeah, I won't say word for word the thing I sent you, but it perfectly
Yeah.
describes this game. It's like
Yes.
Haynes King may or may not be a good quarterback, but that dude's a dog. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
He
when
is.
in doubt, fourth quarter, it doesn't matter if he's been beaten up the whole game. They're gonna run with him, and he's gonna make the big play happen. And I still always think back to like he was at Texas A&M before, whenever he was first there, and I was like, I never would have envisioned this kind of quarterback becoming the what he has been in this Georgia Tech offense, but. Let's not sugarcoat it. Georgia Tech won this game. They had 3 turnovers in the first 7 minutes of the game? I
Yeah.
think like that. And somehow it was only 7-0. So I was like, okay, then they got this in the bag. But the big run by Haynes King late. And then Colorado, Dion, listen, buddy, you don't get to take the timeouts into the next week. You have a
Yeah.
minute with 2 timeouts. Use the timeouts to give your team a better chance late in the game. You probably could have gone to 1 or 2 extra plays to get a little bit closer if you use those timeouts in the game. So I thought Colorado was solid. Obviously, not Gray. Obviously, ended up losing to Georgia Tech, but that just debacle at the end kind of hurt them. But yeah, the overall takeaway from this game is Haynes King is the kind of quarterback, like I said, that is easy to root for because he'll run it
Yeah.
all game. You'll think there's no way he's got any gas left in him. And then the fourth quarter breaks off the big run that ultimately sealed the game for him. So, yes, to quote the text, Haynes King is a dog.
Yes. He is, and again, just a blast to watch. I know we both enjoy watching him. Let's spin it to Saturday morning, where we got, you know, ordinarily I would say I hate big noon kickoff, and I can't stand it because it puts the Big Ten's best game right there in the morning. But on week one of the college football season, it was nice to go ahead and get a big time ranked
Yeah.
matchup just right out of the way, just inject it into my veins. And let's get college football finally started. So that was the only relief about it this week. I know next week I'll be disappointed at whatever big name kickoff is, because maybe it should be being played a little bit later. Fortunately, OU Michigan is being played in OU, so Fox
Yeah.
cannot take that away from us. Uh, but this was, for lack of a better term, a defensive slobber knocker, and
To say the least. To say the least.
I want to highlight the defense because yes, the offenses were not good, and I think we can both agree these offenses did not look like top 10 caliber teams. But these defenses looked phenomenal. Texas obviously was more expected because they returned a lot more guys on this defense. But to me, it was, I mean, I'm not a big Ohio State guy, especially after the way last season ended. But to go out and see this team with a new DC, a pretty much brand new defensive staff, as far as a lot of their key playmakers, um, and go out there and hold the number one team in the nation, Texas Longhorns, to 7 points, I think is really, really impressive. And it shows kind of what they're building here. I don't like Ryan Day, but I'm going to give him a little bit of a hats off. He did a very good job recovering after a national championship and building a team that's going to go out and be tough to put away. Because I know a lot of people, not just myself, were counting the Buckeyes out of this game.
Yep, guilty as charged here. Hand up, guilty as charged when it comes to that. Like you talked about, the defenses were very solid in this game. Like we talked about the offenses, it just looked like two quarterbacks that were making their true debuts
Yeah,
in against top five defenses is what it truly looked like.
agreed.
Two quarterbacks who did
Agreed.
not look comfortable the entire game. Credit to Julian saying for that one deep throw down the field that ultimately was the deciding touchdown. That was a great throw he had there. Easily the
Yeah.
best throw of the day from either quarterback. But I just want to say I hope this is a lesson to all the media at ESPN, this and that. You see, this is why we got to play the games. This is why we got to play the
Yeah.
games. All I heard the whole offseason was Arch Manning was going to win the Heisman. Texas was going to run away with a national championship. And in week one, they struggled. And guess what? If you kept the expectations realistic, maybe people don't freak out as much about it on social media. But because that was all people
Yeah.
heard all the time, they're like, I thought Arch Manning was supposed to be the greatest thing ever. And it happened when you play a good defense. I was not shocked when he struggled. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, he's going to be a bust. He needs time to get it, to figure out the offense. And again, when you're playing as good of a defense as Ohio State was in this game, again, it's really weird to give credit to a Matt Patricia defense. It's just so weird for me to do. But both defenses were excellent in this game. But just a couple of mistakes by Arch really kind of hurt the Texas offense late in the game. But again, the good thing for both these teams, it is week one, and we know both these offenses can get a lot better. And who knows, we might see this matchup with a little bit more points in the playoff later this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm kind of glad you started getting us going this way. Not that we don't usually think alike on this show, but uh I just think that you're right. Look, did Arch Manning look good? No. I'm not necessarily going to say I expected it to be this kind of poor performance. But look, it is like had ESPN not blown it up that Arch Manning is going to make his debut and he's going to be the Heisman and Texas is going to win the national championship.
Right.
People don't overreact because look, it wasn't a good game, but it wasn't the worst game a quarterback has ever played in the history
Exactly.
of football. Um, I think it was a rough game, but like you said, this is two guys making their true debuts for their team. They're the guy playing against some of the top defenses in the entire country. So yeah, this is kind of the expected performance, whether you like it or not. So I think there's a lot left for both of these teams. I think obviously a little bit more exciting for Ohio State because you win this, but for Texas. Look, again, this team returned so much from last year that if Arch can get into a rhythm, this team is going to be just as good, if not better, than they were last year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they have three games coming up. That's San Jose State, UTEP, Sam Houston. Three games where you're not expecting big number, but get in a rhythm offensively. Get him in just a good rhythm with
Yeah.
games because after that, you got Florida at Florida and then Oklahoma back to back. So you get these three games to try to build up some more game reps. But after that, it is a go from here on out the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's spin it over to a big shock and the first big upset of the season. This was fun to watch, but maybe a little bit surprising. The Knowles get a big win at home versus the number 8 Tide. Tommy Castellanos is able to back up a lot of that talk this offseason because he put up, just some absolute big talk all over social media and through the media. FSU ran for 230 yards and 4 touchdowns as a team in this game, and the defense held Alabama to 17. Look, I think this was an impressive going for Florida State. I'm not going to say that I called this because I didn't go that far, but I will say when we kind of talked about this team in the preview and we talked about this game, I thought we were going to see a better Florida State team than we saw last year. I'm not necessarily going to say that I thought they were going to win it. I was definitely rooting for them to win because I do personally like Thomas Castellanos. I think he's a fun quarterback to watch. But I don't think anybody, they're lying if they did,
Right.
expected this to be this kind of game. Maybe I could see a world where somebody thought a better Florida State team could come in here and surprise Alabama, but not by this much and in this fashion. Um, and you really start to wonder uh, how it's all shaken up in Tuscaloosa. Look, if you're on social media, they were calling for Kalen DeBoer's head immediately.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit premature, but do you think there's a realistic possibility we live in a world where Kalen DeBoer doesn't finish the season as the Alabama head coach?
I think if they get to and again, I think it comes down to the way they perform in certain games. I'm talking about when they go to Athens in
Yeah,
like 2 or 3 weeks. If they go to Georgia and just get absolutely destroyed, then I would be willing to have an argument of being like, you know what, maybe there is a possibility. But I'm not going to be overreact to it. But I would just say this for Castellanos, and I say it about all athletes: you can do all that talking, but guess what? If you get on the field and back it up, no one's going to judge. They went on the field and he
yeah,
backed it up. So I had no issue whatsoever with the things he said because he backed it up in the game. Uh, I loved Gus Malzahn's offense. It was as true as it was at UCF. Run the ball up tempo, and Alabama couldn't stop the run in this game either. They really couldn't stop the run. And you talked about only 17 points. It was 10 points after Alabama's opening drive. They really did nothing the rest of the game. And listen, Ty Simpson, it was his first start. So here's my question, man. His first start, why are we throwing it 43 times in
agreed.
this game? You ran the ball early on and it worked really well for you. And then you went away from it when you got behind, which made you get even further behind. So
Yep.
obviously there's that. And then, of course, the questions of effort. I'm sure you have seen the videos of the effort defensively. I have been on the Alabama side of Twitter and TikTok for the past like 3 days. It has been absolutely hilarious to watch people talk about this. Again, I don't think anything will happen unless, let's just say if they lose to like ULM, if they lose to Wisconsin in non-conference, okay, then at that point, I don't know. But I'm not going to hit the panic button yet. Again, it just comes down to effort, I think, for Alabama here. But here's you a stat, Austin, that I think is just wild here. Alabama's ranked 21 in this week's AP poll, which we're going to talk about later. That is Alabama's lowest ranking in the AP poll since 2008.
That is
And
unbelievable.
and that 21st ranking snaps their streak of 278 consecutive AP polls inside the top 20. Again, 278 consecutive polls inside the top 20. So this game was historic. Let's just leave it at that. But it was
Yeah.
great for Florida State. And, we talked about Clemson losing, which we're going to talk more about here. And Miami, I mean, why not Florida State? We kind of thought maybe there'd be one that get there. why not them? They have the games on their schedule later this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and you take the words right out of my mouth here. LSU snaps their season opener losing streak with a 17-10 win versus Clemson. Uh, Look, and it was a close game, but not really. It kind of felt like in the second half the tide turned, and
Absolutely.
I thought the post game interviews and the next day interviews were a little bit funny for the coaches. I don't know if you saw it with Dabo
Yeah, I
saying
did.
he graded it a 68 for a
65,
55.
58, I think,
Yeah,
something like that.
65, 58, 65 for LSU and 58 for him. And Brian Kelly's response, I think it was pretty fitting. Maybe he just didn't want to watch the second half because we were a much better team in the second half. And I'm going to agree with them there. Look, I don't think this was LSU's best game ever, and I certainly don't think it's going to be their best game of the season. But I don't know. I think it was a lot better than a 65. I'm giving it, I don't know, low 80s. They won the game and they dominated the second half of this game. Uh, and look, this score differential would have been a little bit bigger had a clear touchdown stood
Yeah.
in this game.
Oh,
Uh,
don't
let's not get
remind me
started.
of
Let's not
freaking
get
is it a catch
started.
2.0?
Yeah. And then 3.0 we saw a little bit later this weekend. Uh, just fun how many times we had to break down what a catch was this weekend.
Yeah, so apparently I don't know what a catch is anymore, and apparently not many people in college football know what a catch is anymore. But to go with the game specifically, yeah, Clemson played a solid first half, I thought, but the second half, it was not just LSU, it was all LSU. The defense, I keep on hearing about, I thought maybe there was a chance you see upgrades, but this LSU defense played phenomenal. They were hustling to the football, getting pressure on Klubnik. They had to make a stop in the red zone late in the game when it came down to it. Now, if you're asking me about the last 2 years of LSU defense, I'm like, they got to get a stop in the red zone. No way. Let's just let
Yeah.
them score so your offense can have time to get points. But their defense got the stop and got the win. And yeah, first time that LSU's won a opener since 2019. I feel like that was a pretty good year for them in 2019.
Yeah.
Just one of the greatest college football teams ever, I think. But I want to just add this in on Clemson really quick. I keep on hearing every freaking year, the last 2 years before this, about how Cade Klubnik's going to get better and you're going to see the big jump. Garrett Riley got hired from TCU. You're going to see the big jump in the offensive production. Where the heck is it? Where the heck is it in this game? I still have yet to see it against big time opponents. That's what I keep on hearing about. So, look, Clemson is still far and away one of, if not the top teams in the ACC. Obviously, they play Florida State and Georgia Tech this year, so we're going to find out. But, I mean, this is a rough start again offensively in an early season game. And now, I talked about before the game with two teams that had struggled. The struggles continue for Clemson. They can't get off to a good start. And again, it comes down to the offense. Defense was great most of that game. They shut down that offense for most part. It's just you can only hold on for so long until the dam eventually breaks for it. So this Clemson offense has some work to do, but a huge win for LSU.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you take another point right away from me about Cade Klubnik. Yeah, I mean, look, we've seen against the worst of the worst defenses in college football that this guy has a good arm and he's talented. But again, yeah, we keep saying it. You know, when's it going to happen? When is Cade Klubnik going to play well in a big game? When is he going to be the difference maker? And it really felt like they didn't have that same kind of run game they've had the last few years to kind
Mm-hmm.
of fall back on. Um, so we'll see what happens with this Clemson team, but Cade Klubnik has got to step up and he has got to be better. We're talking about a guy that's supposed to be a surefire Heisman candidate this year. Uh,
Georgia Tech in 2 weeks at Georgia Tech in 2 weeks is an insanely tough game. So if they don't win that, then things get really, really interesting.
Let's take it to our two games on Sunday. We had SC winning a pretty fun game against Virginia Tech 24-11. I thought Lenore Sellers looked as freakish as advertised last season. But this SC team has a lot of growing up to do still. A
Yeah.
lot of younger pieces, especially in the receiving core. And we're going to need to see those guys step up. Lenore Sellers probably should have thrown for 500 yards in this game. But we had a lot of Butterfingers at just about every position at wide receiver. Man, if Nick Harbor can catch the ball consistently, that's going to be the best 1-2 punch in college football. He's that big, that fast. Nobody can guard him because he's too big. Nobody can guard him because he's that fast. And Lenore Sellers can put the ball anywhere. If Nick Harbor can get two hands on the ball and haul it in every time, or 90% of the time, going to be a tough offense to stop.
You whenever I think of him, I don't know. Have you seen the football movie The Replacements?
No.
Okay, so there's a guy in the movie. His name is Clifford Franklin. Insanely fast, big athletic guy. Can't catch for crap. I like when I see Harbor, I'm like, that's Clifford Franklin if I've ever seen him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I highly recommend watching it if you ever get the chance. It's a hilarious football movie, but isn't it fitting in this game with Beamer ball for both sides? Obviously, with Coach Beamer being at Virginia Tech and his son now being the head coach of South Carolina. Isn't it fitting that a punt return was truly the difference in this game?
Yeah.
That punt return was phenomenal, phenomenal for South Carolina. I'm trying to remember what's his name, Swain, I think. Vakari Swain, I think was the name. Broke multiple tackles, and that was truly the difference in the game. But you're absolutely right. South Carolina's got some growing up to do. They looked far and away to be the better team, but there are so many mistakes catching the ball, and they couldn't run between the tackles with their running
No.
backs. And you want to know who could do that for them last year? Rocket Sanders.
Yeah.
Now it's someone's going to have to step up in that running back room because Lenore Sellers can't take off running every single play. And this would be like the Bills offense before they got James Cook, where their run offense would literally just be their quarterback. So yeah, good win for South Carolina, and I look forward to envisioning Lenore Sellers in a Pittsburgh Steelers jersey until I know it won't officially happen. But I look forward to envisioning
Yeah.
that in my mind.
That's a yeah, good little thought to fall asleep to. Um, our final game on Sunday, of course, only two games. Miami takes down Notre Dame 27-24. Look, Carson Beck made some throws. I'm not going to necessarily put an adjective on them. He made some throws, and the receiving core showed out. Um, the defense looked phenomenal for Miami. Look, it seems like I think Carson Beck's a good quarterback. I think he's a downgrade from Cam Ward, but it looks like everywhere else, this team got upgraded
Yeah.
big time with the transfer portal. And with that, you can afford to lose a little bit of skill at the quarterback position. Uh, Beck played a good game. He didn't turn the ball over, which he struggled with a lot last year. He looked a little bit more like the 2023 Carson Beck as opposed to last season's Carson Beck.
Right.
Uh, but look, Notre Dame played them good, gave them a fight. But we saw the inexperience of CJ Carr was the big difference in this game, near the end of this game. Uh, as a Notre Dame fan, look, obviously I wasn't happy that we lost. But like, I don't know. I wasn't mad. I watched the game. I guess I was coming into it and I was worried that CJ Carr was just going to be bad. He was just
Right.
going to maybe fold under pressure. But he started a little bit rough, but he really found himself at the end of the third quarter and the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And I think that's some high notes to kind of ride with. He's got the talent, he's got the skill. It's just going to be a matter of taking those steps and continuing to grow. But I'm happy where Notre Dame is. But this was about Miami, and this team looks poised to be a contender this year.
Yeah. The drive I think about third quarter, their drive to start the second half, that's when I was really like, okay, dang, this is like a good team as a whole.
Yeah,
I went into this game thinking this Notre Dame defensive line would handle business against this Miami O line. That did not happen in this game.
no,
Miami's O line was phenomenal pretty much most of this game. Um, yeah, Beck was there, struggles there. Was it like a drop off to Cam Ward? Absolutely. But again, when you have an upgrade in the roster as a whole in the offensive line and Malachi Tony And you have guys like CJ Daniels who will bail out a pass that last year it gets intercepted because Georgia's receivers were dropping everything last year.
Yeah,
And now you got a talented receiver like CJ Daniels who's like, hold on, let me just save you really quick here with a
yeah,
touchdown pass. That was the difference in the talent level there. You talked about CJ Carr. I thought he looked good. Like talked about from the end of the third quarter on, he looked good. There's a couple of things about knowing when to throw the ball away, holding on to it too long, making just a poor decision on a screen. Those things I think are teachable in those games, so I'm not really worried about that. But he showed some flashes. My question is with the OC with Notre Dame in the game plan. Look, I got early on in the game when they came out throwing the ball, I was like, I like it. You know, mix it up. They thought you'd run it with Jeremiah Love to start. You'll start with the pass and then establish the run. I had no issue with that whatsoever. But as we keep on getting further into the game, I'm like, is Jeremiah Love hurt? Why is he not touching the football here? Um, so I would just say this, and especially with a freshman quarterback, like I said in the preview, if they would establish the run and then play off of it, then I thought things could have been better. Again, they went out inside to pass first and second and third and fourth. But I think if they focus more on the run over these next couple weeks, like when they play A&M in them, they will be fine. Carr showed his flashes. Again, just some easy mistakes that are easy to fix for him. So I'm not really worried for either side, but Miami, like you said, it looks like a major upgrade, especially in defense. Keep in mind, they brought the Minnesota defensive coordinator over with them, and you could tell how good that was like a Big Ten coach defense. So
yeah,
credit to
absolutely.
Miami. And hey, how about the state of Florida? This is the first time since 2006 that Florida, Miami, and Florida State are all in the top 15 at the exact same time. So how about the state of Florida?
Yeah, it's good times for them. Um, yeah, I agree. I think this was a different looking team and just awesome to see as far as Miami's concerned. So we'll see kind of how they continue to spin it this season and what the ACC kind of looks like after we've seen this first week. But lastly, talk about last night's game. Um, and ultimately, it's not a game I stuck around to watch for very long. I
Me
went to
either.
bed on time, which I wasn't originally planning on doing because I thought I'd be watching a football game. But
Yeah.
that didn't happen. TCU won 48-14. Um, look, I think I was right. I think I was right about what's going to happen with Bill Belichick this offseason. I thought that this was going to be kind of a 1 year stop, and then Bill Belichick is going to find an NFL job. Um, I did say that it could either be he's so good that he comes back to the NFL, or even if they're bad, I thought somebody would still give him a chance. Um, but yeah, I mean, this did not seem like a serious football team at all. And I'm not trying to disrespect Bill Belichick, but I just didn't. I don't know. I didn't see it. I didn't see a team that should be playing in prime time on Monday night
Yeah.
out
It
there.
was it was let me just say this. After the first drive, the amount of people who were hyped, and then I always have to remind people the first drives for offenses every week are scripted out. Like they
Yeah,
know on second and down and short, we're gonna go this. If we get to third and long, we're gonna run this. They have that memorized in their head to a T. So I'm like, okay, let's see the unscripted drives for North Carolina. Yeah, that's whenever it became exactly what I thought it
yeah,
was going to be offensively. I forget Gio Lopez. I forget the total time, but whenever they say last completion was 8:12 Eastern time, I'm like, dang, you know it's been a minute whenever that happens with that. But that was not the issue because I know the offense at points struggled under Bill Belichick. I thought his defense would be somewhat better than this. I didn't think
yeah,
they'd be elite, but I thought they could at least be solid, and they weren't even close to solid. Josh Hoover played lights out. Kavorian Barnes, the senior running back, looked like Ashton Genty 2.0 out there. I mean, they couldn't stop him any. Yeah.
yeah,
Whenever I left, was start of the second half when Kirk's like, this is a big stop for this North Carolina defense. And then he took it to the house on the first play. I was like, okay, this is about to get ugly. I'm going to dip.
yeah,
So TCU was kind of like a dark horse, I thought, coming into the year in the Big 12, and it kind of looked like here in North Carolina. Look, I said with Bill Belichick, I thought it'd go either really well or really bad. And it got off to a really bad start.
Yeah, not a great look for this team at all. Yeah, just bad all around. Uh, but let's take it into our teams and players of the week here from this past week. Um, Go ahead and kick us off with your teams of the week, and we'll go through.
Yeah. So number 5, I put Ohio State here, and I know it's like, why'd you put them in number 5? It was a top 3 matchup. Um, there were some other performances I wanted to give credit to, so ultimately I knew I would put them on the list, just not that high. Number 4, Utah. How about the Utes on Saturday night? My
Yeah,
gosh. Hey, Nico, do you miss Knoxville yet? I think you might after that game. Utah with a
I
dominating
agree.
win there. Number 3, South Florida. Yeah, I say more my preseason pick to win the American. You knew I was going to roll whenever they were winning big in this one. Number 2, I put Florida State. Just a really solid upset win there. Uh, Dominated over an Alabama team in the top 10. But number 1, I had LSU. And my reasoning here is look, there were 3 top 10 matchups. I wanted to give it to the teams that I thought had the, I don't want to say most impressive, but it was okay, that was really good. And I thought that for LSU with their second half. And you clearly saw whenever they moved them up all the way to number 3 in the AP poll. So LSU is my number 1.
Yeah, yeah. In my top five, actually, I don't know if people have noticed. I guess because they didn't see the full top five, but a top four. But I left Ohio State out entirely of my top
Yeah,
five, kind of in the same vein. Uh, it was, a so-so game. It was a good performance for them,
right.
but there were some other games that I wanted to highlight and credit in this game. But I wanted to give a shout out, honorable mention to Austin P, who defeated an
Yes.
FBS team this week. Um, so shout out to them, a win over Middle Tennessee State. So a little bit of credit there. But at number five, I went with Georgia Tech. I really liked this performance in this game. To see this Georgia Tech team to play the way they played last year and have that consistency and to get a big win to start the season was really impressive. With number four, I went with USF. I really liked this team and this performance. Big time blowout, but I wanted to highlight some of these other big time matchups and big time wins. Number three, I went with LSU. Um, I agree that I thought this was a big game for them, but I kind of highlighted, just their performance was good, but it wasn't a good the whole time.
Right.
Like we said, first half was a little bit rough, but the second half they looked great, and that's a team that's gonna win big this season if they keep playing like that. At number two, I went with Miami. I want to give Miami the nod here over the other top three match or top 10 matchups because this was the best game of all three of them. Uh, it was a thriller, comes down to the wire, which they all did come down
Yeah.
to the wire. They all were one possession games. But this was a great game, high scoring. Both teams looked like competitors. But Miami comes out on top. They get my number two spot. But at number one, I had to go with an unranked over a top 10 team to start the season. Give
Absolutely.
me Florida State at number one. Got to give them the credit there. On Instagram, Florida State wins two polls. On Twitter, Florida State wins one and USF wins one, which leaves us with a pretty much no-brainer winner
Yeah.
here in Florida State. The people have decided that unranked over number eight gets you team of the week in week one.
Hey, I'm not going to complain. And again, they backed up the talk. So I have no
Yep.
problem whatsoever with it. So congrats to them. We'll see what this season turns into for Florida State.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to kick us off with your players of the week now?
Okay, so players of the week at number 5 for mine. You know I like to get a defensive player in here. This was my number 5, Cassius Kearns, a corner from Tarleton State. Speaking of upsets, how about them beating Army in week 1? That was on Thursday or Friday night. I can't remember. I think it might have been Friday night, but they come to UCA in 2 weeks, so that's going to be an interesting matchup.
Wow.
But he had 2 interceptions in this game and a fumble recovery. You know, I like to get my defensive players involved, so I had to have him on there. Number 4, Haynes King. Need I say more than what I said whenever we talked about the game? The
Yeah.
dude's just a dog. Let's just leave it at that. We already know. Number 3, Jonah Coleman. Look, I was already high on this Washington team. They were kind of my sleeper pick for the entire college football this year. And then I saw him run for nearly 200 yards against Georgia Tech and on a play where they just couldn't bring him down to the ground. I already thought the quarterback play was going to be good for them, and now they have really good running back room, at least it looks like to me. Telling you, I'm keeping my eyes open for when Ohio State goes to Washington. I would not be shocked at all if that upset was to happen. Number two, had to go with the fan favorite now, Tommy Castellanos. Again, like I said, you're gonna talk the talk, you better walk the walk, and he did. Running the football, made some big throws down the field. But number one, I talked about him with Utah in my preseason, and that was Devon Dampier. I talked about how that transfer would maybe give Utah a chance to be an elite offense. Boy, did they. 200 yards passing, two touchdowns, 87 yards rushing, and a touchdown as well. 21 to 25 passing. And I will just flat out say this, especially with Kansas State nearly losing to North Dakota, that Ireland curse might be for real, Austin. I really don't know what to
Yeah.
say at this point. But uh, I'll be honest with you, all their big games are at home. Now, with dominating the way they did against UCLA, we could see undefeated Utah this year. I would not be shocked at all. I think at the end of the year, we will see Utah in the Big 12 championship. It's just a matter of are they going to be 11 or going to be 12 and 0 or 11 and 1 or 10 and 2 going into that.
Yeah, I think they had a great performance and obviously kind of made some noise against a pretty noisy offseason for UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at number five, I had to get myself a defensive player in there too. I'm with Ruben Bain from Miami. I feel like this is a guy that's supposed to have been like a force the last few years at Miami. Not that he's been a disappointment, but the Miami defenses have not been great. But to me, he was like kind of the leader in this ferocious attack on the quarterback. Not to mention that pretty incredible interception he had in this game
Yes.
on a freakish tip drill where I was begging Notre Dame wide receivers to bat the ball down and stop slapping it up in the air. Uh, but it was an all around awesome game for Ruben Bain, and really kind of that big kind of come out performance that Miami's been waiting for out of this guy, and now he's the leader of one of the best defenses in the nation. It looks like. At number four had Haynes King, just a dog, like we said. At number three, I went with Malachi Tony, wide receiver out of Miami. Now, this guy did get stopped quite a bit in the second half of this game. Notre Dame
Right.
made great adjustments. Chris Ash did a great job there. But I still wanted to highlight just an awesome overall game. Still 85 yards receiving and a touchdown. Just a blast to watch him be a playmaker as a freshman. He's going to be a difference maker for this team. And number two, I'm with Byron Brown. Not the flashiest game on the stat sheet, but this guy made some big plays, and he was an exciting, fun guy to watch. And he had some crazy breakaway runs in this one. But at number one, I went with Thomas Castellanos out of Florida State. Backed up the talk, played a really good game. You're going to get my number one spot. On Instagram, we had Devin Dampier, Tommy Castellanos, and Haynes King all winning a share of the vote. On Twitter, it was Devin Dampier and Tommy Castellanos coming down to a nail-biting finish by just a few points, where Tommy Castellanos is our player of the week. So unlike the last couple of years, Florida State and Florida State's quarterback, we've got a match in week one.
Yeah, it's rare. We didn't get a lot of those last year. So,
Yeah.
but I look forward to seeing what other ones. But again, I'll say I said it 15 times. I'll say it again. If you're going to talk that and you back it up, you've earned the player of the week. You've earned that. So congrats to him.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a phenomenal performance. But let's take it into our week two talk here as we look ahead. And first thing we should do is stop and take a look at this AP poll where everybody stands. At number one, we've got Ohio State jumping all the way up from three. At number two, we've got Penn State. Number three, we've got LSU. Number four, we've got Georgia. And number five, we've got Miami. What are your thoughts about these first five?
Well, I am completely biased in my reasoning that I think Penn State should have been awarded number one. But I get why they did it. You know, with Ohio State with 3-1. I was shocked to see LSU move up this much from that win. I thought they'd move up to like number five, maybe. But to see
Yeah.
them all the way up to number three, the committee clearly respected that. Similar to Miami, both those teams now in the top five. Very intriguing, exciting. Uh, I get not messing around with Georgia or Penn State because they really didn't play a big team in the matchup this week. So they're like, but they dominated them. So it's like, hey, let's not discredit them for losing. Let's just leave them where they're at, pretty much.
Yeah. I actually like that in this move, all the teams that played in the top 10 matchup this weekend ended up in the top five for winning.
Right.
I like that incentive right away. Next year, teams that think they're going to be ranked at the top, they might look to schedule a pretty good team to play off next year. Because hey, if I beat a ranked team, I'm going to shoot up. If I have a good game, I have a good performance, I'm going to get to shoot up the rankings, and I'm going to get a good start to my season. And so I like that there was an incentive there for these teams to move up. I'm with you. I think maybe the right thing to do should have been to move Penn State up one spot and Ohio State up one spot, but you can't really argue against beating
Right.
the number one
Yeah.
team in the nation, especially with how new the rankings are. Obviously, we don't know everything about everybody just yet. So I think if there was ever a time to beat number one and take their place this early in the season and being the number three team in the nation, it's probably the most acceptable time to do it. Then at number six, we have Oregon. At number seven, Texas. Eight, Clemson. Nine, Notre Dame. And 10, South Carolina. And again, just to quickly point out what I had just kind of made a point of, not only did they reward the teams that played in a top 10 matchup, they rewarded the teams who lost in this top 10
Yep.
matchup. Sure, you're not sitting at one and five and six anymore, or wherever these teams were sitting, but you're still sitting in the top 10. So you weren't punished for playing a good game and losing because all these teams, again, played a one possession game and were this close to winning these games. But your thoughts on the top 10?
Well, how about Oregon, though? Our thoughts about how close that game would be. Dante Moore and them really
Yeah,
shut that up really
absolutely.
quickly.
It was
That
fun to
gives me a
watch.
lot more confidence in Oregon this year.
Yeah.
That gives me a lot more confidence in them. I agree with what you said. I respect them dropping the teams, but not dropping them to where it was a ridiculous point. So I absolutely agree with you on that. I do like it. It feels like they really didn't know what to do with the number 10. They kind of were like, okay, we'll give South Carolina number 10 this week. They can jump some of these other teams. Mainly because I think they played the biggest matchup out of the teams that were kind of vying for that next spot. So I get rewarding that as well. So yeah, I agree mostly you said with this top 10.
Then at number 11, we've got Illinois. At number 12, Arizona State. 13, Florida. And 14, Florida State. 15, Michigan. And look, it's still just mind-boggling to see Illinois at number 11. But your thoughts on the first five outside of the top 10?
Hey, but I will just say this. Listen, I am happy for Florida State. I'm happy they won. What the frick are we doing here? Do we not need to remind the people what happened with Florida 2 years ago when they beat
Yeah,
Utah? What happened the next week after you moved them from unranked to number 12? They lost to Kentucky at home and finished the year 6-6. So like I
yeah,
get wanting to rank Florida State. I get it. But moving them from unranked to 14, way too much. That's the main thing I'd say here. The rest of these I was kind of didn't really have issue with. But like I get Florida State being ranked, but this is literally it feels like Florida 2.0 when they beat Utah and went from unranked all the way to number 12.
yeah. I'm with you there. I thought that was. I think they should have been sitting in the 20s.
Right.
I think they're a good team. And they had an impressive performance, and they absolutely deserve to be honored for that. Especially again, it's week one of the season. This is the time where you can be a little more fluid with the rankings. But yeah, I'm not sure that I want to put them at 14 just yet. Um, at number 16, we've got Iowa State, 17 SMU, 18 Oklahoma, 19 Texas A&M, and 20 Ole Miss. Uh, thoughts on 15 or 16 through 20?
The only thing I would say, if anything, was Iowa State moving up. That was, I think, a combination of that this week and Kansas State last week. So, no, I did not have any issue at all with these. They kind of stayed the same. And for these teams, they'll take care of it soon because obviously Oklahoma plays a big game this weekend. A&M plays a big game next Saturday, not this upcoming Saturday, but the next. And then Ole Miss starts SEC play this weekend. Hopefully, looks to get some revenge against Kentucky. So these
Yeah.
will I get not really moving them around much besides Iowa State. I really don't have an issue.
And then at 21, we've got Alabama, 22, Tennessee, 23, IU, 24, Texas Tech, and 25, Utah. I'll say this to start off. If you're going to jump Florida State all the way to 14,
Right.
maybe Alabama should fall all the way out.
Exactly. That was my thinking there. That was exactly my thinking.
Because to me, South Florida should be in this top 25.
Yeah. I think
And
so
they're
too.
not. So I don't know. You could cut that however you want, but
Yeah.
I think that maybe Alabama shouldn't have been in here. Your thoughts on 21 through 25?
Again, I feel like Utah should have been a bit higher than just 25. Again, but with most of these, I got Alabama dropping. I was honestly surprised they dropped Alabama into the 20s.
Yeah,
I agreed with you that they probably should be out of the rankings based on that performance, but I was like, there's no way they kick them out of the top 20s. Like,
yeah.
I was like, they're going to put them at like 16 or 17 and just be good with that. But they dropped them all the way to 21, and I talked about that stat earlier. So, again, no problem here because, again, we're going to find out about Bama really quickly when they play Georgia in a couple of weeks on the road. And that's a game where, again, if they get blown out, oh boy, this could be an interesting year for Alabama. So, but no, this top 25 is interesting in the whole. I agree. I thought South Florida deserved the credit to be in the top 25. Really, I could have gotten dropping Indiana because Indiana really didn't look that good in their game against, I think it was Old
Yeah.
Dominion. They kind of struggled early on that. So I wouldn't have been shocked to drop them back some, but really not many too big issues because, again, the one thing I love saying about it at this point in the year, these will take care of themselves as the season progresses.
That's very, very true. All right, let's get into some of our game previews here. And look, we've got an in-state rivalry to talk about. We've got a couple in-state rivalries actually that we're going to talk about. But a big one hasn't been played maybe ever. I'm not actually sure. Arkansas State versus Arkansas squaring off this weekend. And look, what are your thoughts on this game? And what's going to happen when the Wolves and the Razorbacks clash?
Oh man, yeah, first time ever with these two schools facing off. Uh, Again, I think Arkansas offense should be fine. You know, they looked good against Alabama A&M. The offense looked good. Plus, Arkansas State gave up over 400, nearly 400 yards of offense to Southeast Missouri State in their win last week. So I feel confident the offense will be there. I'm worried about the defense because Alabama A&M early in that game went right down the field against our starting defense. I legit sat on my couch and I can't say because this is a family-friendly podcast. I can't say what I said whenever Alabama A&M just went right down the field to answer, but it gives me concerns on the defensive line and for this defense. And I love Coach Williams. I think he's a great coach, but this defense has got to pick it up because they're going against an electric QB at Arkansas State and Jalen Rayner in them. So it's a good offense for Arkansas State. The defense has got to step up. Razorback defense is going to be what is the tell in this game.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. If one of these teams can step up and play some good defense, that might be your winner right there. But look, on paper, the Razorbacks should probably win this game. I'm not going to say that the Red Wolves are going to win, but I think people are going to be surprised
I agree.
at how close this game is. Just because I don't think enough people are talking about how
The
excited.
amount of people are like, we're going to blow them out. I'm like, okay, if you want to say that, I'm not going to
Yeah,
say that. But if you want to say that, you go ahead.
yeah, we'll see. But I think we're going to see an exciting offensive matchup between these two. Then we've got Baylor versus SMU. Look, Baylor had a big week last week against Auburn, big offensive numbers, but didn't really hang a lot of points. They're going to be looking to improve, and they're going to be playing a ranked opponent in SMU. What are your thoughts here in this one?
Take the over. I expect there to be a lot of points in this game for both sides. Solid offensively. I'm curious what SMU looks like, because there really wasn't much to tell from their game against East Texas A&M. So I'm curious here again if Texas, again, the big thing with Baylor was their run defense was a major issue in this game. So if they're pass if SMU looks to throw the ball, Baylor's got a shot here. So if they can contain Jennings, then this might turn into a blowout. But the offenses are the key here to see basically who's going to outscore the other, I think, in this game.
Yeah. Then we've got Vanderbilt versus Virginia Tech. Kind of a clash of two talented quarterbacks here. Can Virginia Tech kind of have a recovery after a bad week last week, or will they end up 0-2 against SEC opponents?
This is intriguing matchup, like I said, for our series. The quarterback, again, Diego Pavia's first big shining moment at Vanderbilt was the upset of Virginia Tech last year. So that's
Yeah.
a fun storyline. Just keep an eye on. Again, I expect Vanderbilt to handle business here. I just think they're the better offense as a whole in this game. So I would probably give an edge to Vanderbilt. However, I will not be shocked if Virginia Tech won because it's Enter Sandman at night at Virginia Tech. I'm never going to bet
Yeah.
against that fully.
That's completely fair. I think it's going to be an exciting matchup. I might take the over here in this one as well. These are
47 and a half is low. So yeah, I could see it.
two fun quarterbacks. Maybe don't sleep on this one. Well, let's get into our game picks here. We've got four game picks coming at you. And my first game pick is Iowa versus Iowa State, a little in-state rivalry action. Probably not too particularly close of a spread in this one, but still, Iowa versus Iowa State, you got to pick this one. The
So
Cyhawk Trophy.
yeah. Uh just a heads up, my bet of the week will be coming from this game whenever we talk about our bet of the week. So you could probably figure out what it is. But anyway, in this game, I thought I've heard all the talk about this quarterback at Iowa. I've heard it all off season that Iowa's finally got a quarterback. The man threw for 44 yards last week against Albany. So take that they got a quarterback with a grain of salt. So at the end of the day, I'm going to go with the safe pick and pick Iowa State. Yeah, just the end of the day, I'm going to roll with Iowa State.
Yeah, I didn't know if this was going to be a tough pick. I really didn't think it was going to be, but I wanted to pick it because I felt like it, and I get to do whatever I want because it's my episode. So I'm going to take Iowa State here to retain the Cyhawk Trophy, I believe. Uh, and let's get into another fun little rivalry game here: Kansas versus Missouri. Uh, this is going to be an interesting game. Two teams that have had pretty good starts to the season. Now I know Missouri's came unfortunately at the expense of the University of Central Arkansas, but Kansas again has been pretty impressive through two games this season compared to what they looked like through two games last season. So who do you got in this one?
Just glad to see this rivalry back.
Yeah,
I've kind of missed seeing it in basketball and in football. It's nice to see it back here. I kind of wish they would have done game day here, just because it was such unique to have the rivalry back in this one.
yeah,
But I'm gonna take this is a fun game. I think this is going to be a really, really fun game with two sides. I'm going to lean on the quarterback that I trust more at the end of the day, which is Jalen Daniels. Uh, I think Prabula looked good running the football against UCA, but again, I thought the more efficient offense, Kansas, is going to be the one that takes the win on the road. I know it'd be a big upset to some people, but I'm going to take the Jayhawks to get the win on the road.
yeah. I'm gonna ride with the Jayhawks in this one too. Look, I like Brabula, and I think that he had a great a start. I think I was curious to see how he would play outside of the Penn State system and actually, as the lead quarterback. And I think he had a good start, but I'm with you. If I'm going to lean on a team and I'm going to lean on a quarterback in this game, I'm leaning on Jalen Daniels every day. Um, then we've got USF versus Florida. Should be a ranked matchup, in my
Yes.
opinion, but it's not. But a battle here in Florida. Who you got?
You know what? I haven't done a fun pick in a hot minute. So we're going to do a fun pick here. South Florida goes into Gainesville and is going to take down the Gators. I think the offense at point struggle last week. but I thought the defense played pretty solid here. So I'm going to give them an edge, get a couple turnovers here. I know 17.5 point underdog, and I'm picking them outright to win. Sue me here, okay? I'm doing my fun pick. My American Conference champions are going to go into Gainesville and pull off the shocker of the weekend.
That's what I like to hear. Unfortunately, I won't go that far with you. I'm going to take the Florida Gators. I think this is going to be a closer game than that spread says. But I think Florida's going to make the big plays at the end of the game to pull this one out. Finally, we've got number 15 Michigan versus number 18 OU. You knew we were going to be picking this game. Who do you got?
Is it any question who I'm going with here? The man who's the future Heisman winner, the next great Heisman winning QB from Oklahoma, John Mateer, and them are going to win this game. My big thing is the Michigan defense. I wasn't that impressed with in their win over Fresno State. It was Fresno State, right? That's who they played, or am I thinking of someone
Yes, yes.
else?
Fresno State.
Okay.
I
Or no, it
think.
was New
I also
Mexico. New
think Fresno.
Mexico. Sorry. They played Fresno State last year. That's what I'm thinking of. But I wasn't impressed with the defense in the game, nonetheless. I'm confident in John Mateer and Jaden Knott to get going. He didn't get a lot of carries in the last game. I think he'll get some in this game, and they will score enough to win the game here. I'm confident in that. But if it's close late, and I was going to give an edge to a defense, this one would kind of be a coin flip. But I'm going to give the edge to Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm going to take Oklahoma in this game as well. I'm just not sold on the Michigan team. I think they've got a good team, but I think they have a young team, especially being led with a
Exactly.
young quarterback. I just don't know if Bryce Underwood's going to come in and lead this team to a victory in Norman in the second game of his career.
Yeah, this is a Michigan team to me that screams 9-3 season, top 10 preseason ranking next year. That's when I look at
Yeah,
this Michigan team, that's what I envision with them.
yeah, I think they've got the right pieces. I don't know if they're there yet. Finally, let's go to that bet of the week. What do you got as your bet of the week this week? You said it's for the Battle of the Cyhawk Trophy.
There's nothing I love more in life than Iowa punt offs. They always bring me joy. And so you know what? In this game, why not have some fun with the under? Give me under 41.5 in the Cyhawk in the battle of Iowa State and Iowa. It's always usually a very low scoring game between two teams with solid defenses. And I think Iowa State will win at the end of the day, but I'm going to take under 41.5 in the Cyhawk battle as my bet of the week.
There you go. And my bet of the week, look, I like the way this game's going to go. I'm going to take Arkansas State plus 23.5 versus the
Woo!
UVA. I think they're going to keep it inside that 23.5 point margin. I don't necessarily think they're going to win, but I think that they'll be able to keep this game close or
All
closer.
right. Yeah.
So, with all that being said, that's going to wrap it up and do it for us here at the Bull Take Podcast for week one. Tune into week two. Sure, not as action packed as week one was this season, but we've still got some good games, some
Hey, have
exciting
these
games.
people learned nothing from last year? The weeks where
Yeah.
you think nothing's going to happen is where the most happens. So you got
Yeah.
to tune in.
You can never rest easy a week in college football. I can't remember how many times last year I was like, this week broke the record for most top 25 teams losing in a week. I did that 3 or 4 times last
I
year
think so.
because that record kept getting broken. I had to look it up the first time, and then I knew the record because I had looked it up already, and it had been broken this season. So I just had to count how many top 25 teams lost. I think it's like 8 or 9 now. Eight
My
or nine
gosh.
top 25 teams is the record to lose in a week. But that's going to do it here for us for the Bull Take Podcast. That's Austin Wader. I'm Austin Hill, and we want to thank you for listening.